It's really cool when you see young guys coming. Like, dude, I know it's going to get overshadowed because they lost yesterday, but Puka Nacua,
Yeah.
like 5th-round pick, came out of nowhere. One of the best seasons ever for a wide receiver.
181 yards in
Amazing,
that game or
dude.
something.
Amazing. So,
yeah. I mean, he nearly killed the Lions. Close.
Let's go, Alec. Let's go. Yeah, let's talk about some games, buddy. Let's talk about some games.
Let's go to the Lions.
You want to go to the Lions?
Let's
First
go to
of all,
Detroit freaking Lions. So nice. So nice. 32 years for a playoff victory. No fan base deserved it more than the Lions. None.
Crazy.
Not a single fan base in the NFL deserved to see their team win a playoff game more than the Detroit Lions, and it happened. It happened for them. They beat a very good team. Got close at the end there. Yeah. Almost slipped away from them, but it didn't. It didn't. Got a Dan Campbell fourth down call that works.
Dude. McVay was gutsy too. You know, the only thing was when they punted it away with like 4 minutes left and they only had one timeout, I was like,
yeah, Lions just said not going to happen.
Yeah, they were talking about, of course, that, you know, the non-PI call that was for Puka. That was like the big thing that was going on social media right afterwards.
Oh, the Lions got one favorable call in the last 32 years. One time. Lions also probably got robbed of points because of that false start that was called on them. That wasn't a false start, right? Stafford playing well, and also he got the piss beat out of him in that game. And that shot he took where he hurt his hand early, cut his hand open.
Yeah.
Then something else was hurting on him. And then he gets hit, his head hits the ground, his eyes go like this. Everyone's like, "Oh, that's a concussion." And then he's back in the next series after getting checked out. Like,
dude, but like that's been the thing that I've always respected the hell out of Matthew Stafford, because he did it in Detroit too. He just didn't get the coverage unless you were in the NFC North. Like, it was just like he got the piss beaten out of him behind a bad offensive line. He got crushed. And he would come. He came in. What was that dislocated shoulder and still threw the pass. Dude, they
played that on the NFL Network before that game, re-highlighting that game against the Browns.
I will always have respect for Matthew Stafford. I'm happy he got that ring, and it's just for him to also. I know he would want to win, but for him to just be there when Detroit wins their first playoff game in 30 years, first one in Ford Field, that's just such an awesome football human moment.
We always knew Matthew Stafford would give the Lions their first playoff win. We always knew it. We always knew it. He did a no-look pass in that game. Yep. He's done that his whole career. Never really gotten credit for it. Got beat up. Gave his team a chance to win, and he's been that guy, and he just proved it again. But to be fair to Matty Stafford, this is Dan Campbell's Lions team now. This is Dan Campbell's team. He lost to Jared Goff. The Lions, I don't know how powerful it is if you exercise your curse against your greatest football hero since Barry Sanders, right?
Calvin Johnson might be.
What's that?
Calvin Johnson.
Matthew Stafford's a bigger hero than Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson retired even earlier than Barry, really. But I'm saying, is that enough to take the Lions to the Super Bowl?
They have the greatest circumstances.
Do they have enough black magic on their side now is what I'm asking.
But it's that. But, dude, if you're the Lions, you're hosting another playoff game, and it's the winner of the Eagles-Buccaneers. If you are a Lions fan, of course there's going to be nerves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that game is not going to be as tough as the Rams game was. If the same Eagles and Buccaneers that we have seen, I'm not saying it's not going to be a competitive game. I'm not saying the Lions can't lose, but
I don't even know who you want more from that game, because you could argue either way. But they should be in the NFC Championship game. Please, Lions, let one of my predictions be correct. Amon-Ra, he was good. Laporta defies, healing. He plays in this game, catches a touchdown early. Jahmyr Gibbs scores a touchdown. And Josh Reynolds, too. Little under the radar revenge game. He played well for Detroit. They targeted him early. Reynolds was targeted a lot early.
He was, yeah.
And I feel like that kind of had to be a Dan Campbell plan, right? Let's get him involved. This is his old team, too. Let's get that going quickly. And I tweeted this last night because we've been talking about Coach of the Year a lot, right?
Yeah.
Lately, we have not been putting Dan Campbell in that conversation at all recently, and it's because we've been criticizing some of what was going on with the line, some of his in-game calls and stuff that you look at a game-by-game basis. But like Coach of the Year, it's like about a body of work over a full season. And I know there's D'Amico Ryans out there, and he's probably going to get it. But Dan Campbell, it's not even just this year. What he's done since he got to Detroit, going from a 3-win, they got 3 wins their first year with Goff, and they won a playoff game. To me, that's more impressive than what D'Amico Ryans did, because D'Amico Ryans was given the greatest gift you can give a head coach, and that is an insanely talented quarterback.
You talk about why the Lions have had success, and I think, you have Penei Sewell, who gets drafted like that. The fact that he fell into their laps was like a home run.
They've drafted so well.
So, and this got said in the locker room afterwards. Dan Campbell gave away 2 game balls, right? One to Jared Goff, and that was like an awesome moment. The other was to GM Brad Holmes, who you saw him cheering in the elevator. Like, that's freaking awesome. But it was a speech that Dan Campbell made and was like, we both have the same vision. It's about grit. We want to draft gritty players. We want to build up the trenches. And I think when you have a GM and a head coach that have that same exact vision and they are locked in, like, you're talking about great duos right now in the NFL and like what they want for their team and building their team and that roster. Like, they had those low draft picks. They got Penei Sewell. They crushed the draft this year. I mean, yeah, like, that's going to make your job a whole lot easier. We're talking all around the NFL of like, oh, well, this coach not looking good. This GM is not looking good. We talk about Bill Belichick, right? And how he's good coach, bad GM. Here, like, the Lions have a good coach, right, who can be really risky, can kind of put it all on the line. But you also have a GM who's backing him and is constructing a roster that is allowing Dan Campbell to do what he wants and kind of get the team on the field that he wants as well.
I don't think there's probably a couple examples, but I think Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes understand their team's identity as good, if not better, than any other head coach GM combo in the league. And like me saying that I think Dan Campbell should be considered and should actually be Coach of the Year doesn't take away from the fact that I still would criticize some of the things that we saw in the last 2 weeks there. Losing to the Cowboys the way they did, and playing Laporta where he got hurt. Miracle happened and Laporta comes back. Like, you can criticize some of those decisions, but overall, like, there's still no coach you root for more than Dan Campbell. Like, he's so fucking passionate about his team and the way they approach the game. It's cool to watch. And knowing how criticized he was from his opening press conference with the Lions, just like Jonathan Gannon, like all that shit, like, didn't matter. And they talked about it, I think it was on Good Morning Football, like, he specifically wanted the Lions job. Like, he wanted to be there, and Detroit needed a guy like that so bad.
They did.
So bad that they looked at that opportunity as a place where they wanted to be, not like, this is the only job I can get type thing. You know what I mean? So it's cool. It's
also, like, cleanse the palate after Matt Patricia, because Matt Patricia was thought like he's gonna be the guy that's gonna save Detroit, like one of the hottest like coaches coming out of here, like it's gonna be great. And it didn't just go poorly, it went horrifically bad. It alienated players, like alienated everything. And now I think it's like that former player mentality too. You look at so many of their coaches who are former players, and I think that builds that identity that you're talking about.
Yeah, you talk about windows too. Lions are in one, because their coordinators are probably going to be gone. And we just watched kind of what happens like with the Eagles. They lose both of their coordinators after getting to the Super Bowl. And if those guys are really, really good, it's a tough thing to cycle through losing both of those guys. And I hope one of them stays. I don't know if they will, but Lions you got to push all the way to the Super Bowl, because you got the momentum. And I think it's going to be harder next year. You got the Packers, who are going to be better next year within the division. So, go get it. Take advantage of this window.
I don't think the Higbee hit was intentional. Like, it didn't. It looked really bad, though.
It
looked horrible.
You go low on big dudes it's legal to do that.
Yeah.
You go down on big dudes, Tom. That's what you do in the NFL. You just go down on big dudes if you want to get them. If you want to get them, you go down on big dudes.